My name is Liam Kilby and I'm the Associate Director of MBA Recruitment and Admissions here at Saïd Business School, University of Oxford. This webinar is all about helping you submit the strongest, most competitive application possible for the Oxford MBA. Whether you're just getting started or already working on your materials, this session is designed to give you the practical tips and insights that can help take your application from good to great. Over the next 30 to 40 minutes, you'll hear directly from members of the recruitment and admissions team, people who review applications every day. They'll walk you through what we look for across each part of your application, including your academic profile, your professional experience, and your personal story. At Oxford, we take a holistic approach to admissions. That means we're not looking for perfection, we're looking for potential. We're looking for people who are reflective, driven, and ready to make the most of the Oxford MBA. We hope this session not only gives you the tools to craft a stronger application, but also helps you see why you belong at Oxford. The Q&A box is now live, so feel free to start submitting your questions at any point during the session. Our team will be responding behind the scenes and will also answer some live at the end.
Your academic profile is where we assess your ability to manage the academic demands of the MBA programme. We're not just looking at grades, we're looking at evidence of intellectual curiosity, commitment, and your readiness to contribute to a rigorous academic environment. The academic profile is made up of 3 components: your undergraduate degree and transcripts, your GMAT or GRE score, and, if required, proof of English language proficiency. We welcome applications from candidates with a first class or upper second class honours degree, or a GPA of 3.5 or above on a 4-point scale, or the international equivalent. That said, we understand academic paths vary. If your classification is lower, we'll take a look at the whole picture, especially your career progression, your test scores, and your ability to reflect and grow. Your subject area doesn't matter. We admit students from across the academic spectrum, from engineering and economics to history, law, and the arts. We value diversity in thought, background, and perspective. At the application stage, we're happy to accept a scan of your transcripts or even a screenshot from your university's online portal. Unofficial transcripts are absolutely fine at this point. Just make sure you've included your full academic record, not just the degree certificate. And finally, if your transcript isn't in English, be sure to upload a certified translation along with the original. Getting this right now helps us ensure a smooth review later. Submitting a valid GMAT or GRE score is a mandatory part of the Oxford MBA application. We do not offer waivers regardless of your academic background, previous qualifications, or professional experience. We'll accept either test, and we have no preference between the GMAT and the GRE. Both online and in-person versions are accepted equally. Choose whichever format and test style suits you best. You'll need to upload your score report when you submit your application. Even if you've registered Saïd Business School to receive your scores directly from GMAT or ETS, we'll still ask you to upload your own copy to the application checklist. If your test score is missing or your test is expired, we won't be able to consider your application. In terms of expectation, there is no minimum score, but the medium GMAT in our current class is 680. For GMAT Focus, you will need an approximate score of 625. The median GRE is 160 in verbal and 160 in quantitative. A high score is helpful, but it doesn't guarantee a place, and a lower score won't automatically disqualify you. What matters is how well your test supports your overall application. If you've taken the test more than once, we'll consider your highest total score. Just remember to plan ahead. Scores need to be uploaded by the stage deadline that you're applying to. That means scheduling your test in advance, especially if you're sitting the online version and waiting on official results. If you're a national of a non-majority English-speaking country, you'll need to demonstrate English language proficiency when you apply to the Oxford MBA. We accept several types of tests. The TOEFL with a minimum overall score of 110. The IELTS academic test with a minimum overall score of 7.5 and 7 in each section. All test results must be less than 2 years old at the time of your application deadline. This is a strict university requirement, and we cannot accept expired results or results that fall below the stated minimums. When applying, you must upload your test score report to the application checklist. If your scores are below the minimum or over 2 years old, you will need to retake the test and upload new results. IELTS General Training and IELTS Online are not accepted, only the academic version is valid. In some cases, you may be eligible to request an academic or professional waiver. To be eligible for the academic English waiver, you must have completed a full-time degree of at least 9 months at a recognised institution where both teaching and assessment were entirely in English, and you must have graduated within 2 years of your MBA start date. If you request this waiver, you must submit official documentation confirming the language of instruction. A degree certificate alone is not enough. We'll need a formal letter from your university. For the professional waiver, your role used English every day in a technical or professional environment using reading, writing, speaking and listening. And/or you worked for at least 2 years in a majority English-speaking country and your role ended within 2 years of your MBA start date. If you're applying under the professional waiver, you must submit a document that clearly explains how you used each component of English in your day-to-day work.
Your professional profile is where we get to understand your career to date, the experiences you've had, the impact you've made, and how your journey so far prepares you to contribute in the Oxford MBA classroom. We're not just looking for years of experience, we're looking for evidence of growth, leadership potential, and readiness to learn and collaborate in a globally diverse community. The professional profile is made up of 2 main components. Your CV, which summarises your roles, results and progression, and then your letters of recommendation, which gives us insight into how others see your contribution and potential. To apply for the Oxford MBA, you'll need to have a minimum of 2 years of full-time work experience. That can come from any sector, and we welcome applicants from consulting, healthcare, finance, NGOs, startups, creative industries, and many more. It's not just about where you've worked, we're looking for career progression. How have your roles grown in scope? How you have led projects, teams, or taken initiative beyond what was expected. Your CV should be clear, concise, and no more than 1 page. Use bullet points, avoid jargon, and focus on impact, not just your responsibilities. If you've worked across borders with global teams or in diverse environments, make sure that's reflected. And finally, remember that your CV is one of the first things we read, so make sure it connects with your wider application story. Another important part of your application is the post-MBA career plan, and this is a key section of your application. We're not expecting you to have everything figured out, but we do want to see that you've thought carefully and critically about what you want to do next. Your career plan should show that you've reflected on the experience you already have, and that you've researched your target industry or role, and that you understand how the Oxford MBA will help you close the gap. We're looking for a plan that's realistic, well-informed and ambitious in the right ways. If you're pivoting sectors or geographies, explain why and how you're preparing for that transition. Just as importantly, we encourage you to include a realistic plan B. This shows adaptability and that you've considered multiple paths to your goals, which is exactly the kind of mindset that helps students thrive during the MBA. As part of your application, you'll need to submit 2 letters of recommendation from either a professional or academic referee. Your referees don't need to be your direct manager, but they should be people who you've worked closely with and know you well. Ideally, they'll be individuals who can offer a thoughtful, honest view of your contributions, character and potential. Once you enter their details in the online application, your referee will automatically receive an email with a link to complete the reference form. This includes a short competency rating section and a space for a letter-style response explaining their assessment in more detail. It's your responsibility to ensure both letters are submitted by your stage deadline. We can't review your application without them. A quick note, we can only accept references submitted from a valid professional or institutional email address. Strong letters of recommendation really do help us understand your story.
The final part of your application is your personal profile, and this is where you can really distinguish yourself. This section gives us insight into who you are, your values, your goals, and what you'll bring into the Oxford MBA community. At Oxford Said, we don't just build a class, we build a cohort. A group of individuals who are diverse in background, but united by their curiosity, drive, and potential for impact. This is your opportunity to go beyond your credentials and show us the person behind the application. So let's take a closer look at the elements that make up your personal profile. The personal statement is short, just 250 words, but it's one of the most important ways you can bring your application to life. It's a key part of your overall narrative. The prompt is simple. Tell us something that is not covered in your application, which you would like the admissions committee to know about you. But while the question is simple, it's not optional. There's no single right approach. Some of the strongest essays we read are the most personal and reflective, the ones that shows who you are, not just what you've done. We encourage you to use your own voice and be authentic. We're not looking for perfection. We value clarity, storytelling, and thoughtfulness. When we review your personal statement, we're looking for clear communication, leadership potential, analytical thinking, and most importantly, your fit within the Oxford MBA community. Whether your story is quiet or bold, personal or professional, make it real. This is your chance to speak directly to us. Take it. The online assessment, delivered through a platform called Clear Talent, is your chance to show us how you think on your feet, communicate under pressure, and let your personality come through, all in your own words. You'll be asked to complete 3 short video-based questions. These are randomly selected competency-based prompts that focus on the kinds of qualities we look for in Oxford MBA candidates. Once you submit your application and upload both your referee details and CV, a link to the online assessment will be emailed to you, usually within 24 hours. We recommend completing those sections early so you have plenty of time. You can practice as much as you want in the Clear platform before starting your real assessment. We highly recommend using the practice environment. Once you begin the real questions, you'll get 20 seconds to prepare and 90 seconds to respond. There's no retake option, so once you'll begin, you'll need to commit to each answer. Your responses don't need to be perfect, but they do need to be genuine. This is not an academic test. We want to see clarity, confidence, and character. Plan ahead. If you leave this until the last minute and run into technical issues, we may not be able to accept a late submission.
Throughout this session, we've talked through each part of the Oxford MBA application, from your academic record and professional experience to your career goals, references, essay, and online assessment. Once you've completed each section and submitted your application, our team will then begin reviewing it as part of the stage you've chosen. You can apply in any one of the application stages, but make sure everything is submitted and completed by the deadline of the stage you're aiming for. That includes your references and Kira assessments, so please leave enough time. There's no perfect stage to apply in. We look carefully at every application we receive in every round. Most importantly, make sure your application feels authentic, well prepared, and true to you. Thank you for joining us for today's session. We hope you found it helpful and that it's given you a clearer sense of how to put forward a strong Oxford MBA application. More than that, we hope it's helped you see why you belong at Oxford. We'll now move into our live Q&A, and this is your chance to ask us anything you would like, whether that's about the application process, scholarships, interviews, or life at Oxford. If you haven't already, just type your questions into the Q&A box. Some will be answered live on screen and others by members of our team behind the scenes. And if we don't get to your question today, don't worry. You can always email us at oxfordmba@sbs.ox.ac.uk and we'll be happy to follow up. So, let's get started.
Okay, welcome everybody. Sorry about that. There's always a slight delay when we transition out of the webinar portion into the live Q&A. Thank you very much to all of you who have joined the session this afternoon. I hope you found that walkthrough of the application process and the different components of the application helpful. And for the remainder of the session, both myself and my colleague Hazel, who has joined in the background, are here to answer any questions that you have about any of the different components of the application that were referenced in the video, or just any other pressing questions that you may have had before joining the session today. Let me introduce myself properly before we start going through some questions. My name is Hannah Griffiths. I am one of the recruitment and admissions managers for the Oxford MBA. So it's a pleasure to be here with all of you this afternoon for me, morning, afternoon or evening for wherever it is in the world that you have joined from. And as I said, for the remainder of the session, we'll be using the time to answer any questions that you may have. If you can please submit them via the Q&A function that you will see on the screen, that would be very helpful for us. It just allows us to keep a better overview of the questions that are coming through and make sure that we can get through as many of them as we possibly can in the time. This section of the session really only works if people actually have questions. So do please send some through. We will go through all of the ones that are there for as long as that takes us until we reach the hour mark that we are supposed to conclude at. If we get through the questions a little bit sooner than that and there's no new ones coming through, then we will finish up the session a little bit earlier. As I mentioned, I'll aim to answer as many as I can live, and my colleague Hazel is in the background and she'll be typing some responses and sending them through to you guys as well. Okay, I'm just going to start at the top of the list. I will scan through because sometimes I find that we get similar questions, and there's kind of themes that start to emerge from the questions that are coming through. Okay, there's a good question here from Amanda. Thank you very much, Amanda, for sending this through. And clearly you have done some very good research. So Amanda's question is about the English language tests, and in particular the TOEFL tests. And she has noticed on our website that we have highlighted that from the 21st of January 2026, that we will no longer be accepting the TOEFL test. And so Amanda's just asking for some clarification on which English language tests that we will accept after that date. As far as I'm aware, Amanda, as things stand, we will still be accepting the academic IELTS test, which is currently the only other language test really that we see candidates submitting with. I know that there are a number of other schools which do accept the Duolingo English tests. Unfortunately, the University of Oxford does not accept those. I think both Oxford and Cambridge, both essentially are still sticking to the academic IELTS tests once they can no longer you take the TOEFL IBT after January 21st. So if you are on the call and you do need to take an English language proficiency test and submit scores as part of the application, I'd recommend taking the IELTS test. I can just see, sorry to be very pedantic, I can see there's lots of questions coming through on the chat. If you guys can please send the questions through in the Q&A function, that would just be a little bit easier for me just so that I can keep oversight of them. Thank you very much. Okay, we've got a question here that is asking about undergraduate degree scores and GMAT scores. Okay, and so this candidate is asking about having a lower second class degree and then a first class master's degree and then a GMAT score of 650, and asking how this affects their application. So essentially, I guess, is asking about the academic profile section of the application. And it's good that you've provided all of that information in together, because essentially that is how the committee will review your academic profile. So they will take a look at your undergraduate degree score. They will take a look at any additional academic qualifications that you have. So whether that's master's degrees, CFA, CPA, any qualifications like that. And then of course your GMAT or GRE score in addition to that as well. Some of the things that you flagged there, I guess, is that your undergraduate degree score is maybe lower than what we state that the committee like to see candidates have. However, you have balanced that out by having a first class master's degree, which will certainly help to kind of push your academic profile up a little bit further if you have a lower undergraduate degree. And you also have a GMAT score that I would describe as competitive. It's a little bit lower than the median for our current cohort, but a score of 650 certainly isn't a score that I think would give the committee any concerns around your academic ability and being able to cope with the academic content of the Oxford MBA programme. So the key thing that I would say in relation to undergraduate degree scores for anybody who has joined and who maybe like that candidate is a little bit worried that their undergraduate degree score is kind of the weaker component of their academic profile. That is really the only component of the application that you can't control at this point. The score that you have is the score that you have. There's nothing that you can do to change it. So my best advice in relation to that is to just focus on the components of the application that you do have control over. In particular, if you are concerned about having a lower undergraduate degree score or a lower GPA, then having a competitive GMAT or GRE score can really help to balance that out. In particular, because obviously the test scores that you'll submit for the GMAT and the GRE will oftentimes have been taken more recently than your undergraduate degree score, and so are possibly more reflective of your academic abilities as they are currently. So if you are concerned around that, I would definitely recommend taking a little bit more time around the GMAT GRE, just seeing if you can get your score a little bit higher up. But as I mentioned earlier, the committee will look at your academic profile holistically, and they'll look at all of the different components that you submit together, trying to get as balanced a view of you and your academic profile as they possibly can. Great question. Thank you very much for that. The next question that we have here is about about the online assessment. So can you share more about accessing the live environment to practice the assessment? Yes, we definitely can. So the Kira platform that you need to access to complete the online assessment for the MBA, you can get the link to the Kira platform by uploading your CV to the application and adding the names and email addresses of the two referees that you would like to use as part of your application. So once you have uploaded those two components of the application, within 24 hours of that, you'll receive a link to the Kira Talent platform, and you will then be able to log in and you'll be able to access, first of all, the practice environment for the online assessment, and then obviously from there we'll be able to do the online assessment for real, as and when you think you will be ready for it. The big advantage of the practice environment, I think, is just to help you get over any nerves or discomfort that you might have with video recording yourself answering questions. I think for lots of people, even if you are very confident, very extrovert, you maybe have a very kind of customer facing role or you regularly make presentations, there is something just a little bit strange and awkward about video recording yourself answering questions. So I think the practice environment does really give you a chance to just play around with the software, get rid of any kind of nerves that you feel about making the recordings. I should say that the questions that you are asked in the practice environment aren't the same as the questions that you will be asked in the online assessment for real. So do be mindful of that and don't be thrown off when you go to do the assessment for real if the questions are a little bit different. The questions that you will get in the online assessment that you will submit as part of the application are focused on looking for key behaviours or traits that we think strong MBA candidates demonstrate. So these questions focus on areas like decisiveness, collaboration, vision, leadership, and integrity. And they'll come across as very standard interview questions. So, for example, tell us about a time where you had to make a decision with very limited information available, or tell us about a time where you had a new member join your team. How did you assist with onboarding them? Those kinds of things. So really looking for you to showcase to us that you have enough experience that you can draw on, that you'll be able to actively contribute in classroom conversation and discussion. Also an opportunity for you to demonstrate that you have those traits that I mentioned just before that we are looking for, and also a great opportunity for you to show your communication style as well. You will have in the online assessment for real 20 seconds to think of an answer and then 90 seconds to record your answer within. I think that differs in the practice environment as well. I believe in the practice environment you get a little bit longer to think of your answer. So again, be mindful of that when you come to do the assessment for real. We have shortened the preparation time for the questions for the real online assessment this year to discourage candidates from typing the question into ChatGPT and having ChatGPT create a good answer for them. There's honestly no value in doing that. There's no right or wrong answers to the questions that you'll get asked. And we really do just want to see kind of, how quickly you can think on your feet. And as I said, that you do have some experiences that you can draw on, showing us really what it would be like to have you as a peer in the classroom if you were to join the programme. So I hope that is helpful. Thank you very much. Next question just goes back to the English language proficiency tests that we mentioned before. So again, this is asking if the Duolingo test is acceptable. Unfortunately, no. As I mentioned, both the University of Oxford and the University of Cambridge, as far as I'm aware, have decided not to accept the Duolingo English tests. And so we would recommend taking the academic IELTS test moving forward if you are submitting language tests after the 21st of January. Great question here from Will. Thank you, Will, for your question. So Will is asking if we have office hours or times that he can personally connect with the MBA admissions and recruitment team. So the best thing that you can do, Will, obviously this is very dependent on where people are based in the world. Our team does travel regularly and we do host in-market information events or one-to-one coffee chats. So I would definitely recommend keeping your eye on our events page on our website. You can register for any events that we are hosting in potentially a city near you, and that's a great opportunity to go along, meet members of the recruitment and admissions team and some of our wonderful alumni as well as part of those sessions. We also will host events here in the UK, so we will regularly have open mornings or evenings at the business school where you can come and join us. We host one-to-one sessions in London pretty regularly for candidates who are UK based, but obviously if none of that is accessible to you, you can just send an email to our general email address, attach your CV and just reference that you would ideally like to have your profile reviewed or connect with somebody from the recruitment and admissions team, and somebody will hopefully then be able to get back to you and either potentially set up a call with you or send you some information by email as well. So yes, please absolutely reach out to us if you would like to connect. Great question here from Luciana, again referencing the English language test. So Luciana is asking if the English language test needs to be submitted before the application deadline or if it's a requirement that can be submitted after applying. No, Luciana, your English language test scores have to be available and uploaded as part of the application. So that's true of all test scores, the same with GMAT or GRE. In order for your application to come through to the team as complete and for them to be able to process the application, you have to have test scores available at the point of application. There is some scope after you have submit your application. Sometimes we will have candidates who want to retake those tests and potentially are hoping to be able to submit improved scores after the point of application, and you certainly can do that. There is obviously a slight risk involved that your application may be processed and reviewed before you have had the opportunity to submit the new test scores, so do bear that in mind. But in order to get your application to come through to us as complete and for the team to be able to process and review your application, you will need to have the language test scores available at the point of application, I'm afraid. Great question, thank you. There's a good question here from Alan Creta. Alan Creta, I would maybe recommend that you reach out to the team and potentially send that through by email. I just say because it's a very specific question to your profile, it's probably not relevant to everybody who is on the call today. As kind of a general guide, so Alan Creta is asking about her professional profile, originally being from kind of a public sector banking background, and then pivoting into kind of a modelling and coaching career, and she's now looking to make a pivot into finance and VC, which is potentially why they are considering doing an MBA. And I think your question is around whether or not you have the right profile to pivot, which in all honesty, I would not be best placed to answer. I think that would be more of a question for our Career Development Centre to give you some guidance on. I would say it's worth doing a good level of research in advance of submitting an application. Both for yourself and for the sake of the application as well. I think MBAs are obviously a huge investment of candidates' time and huge financial investment as well. And so you want to have a level of certainty that the MBA programs that you're applying to are going to be able to help to get you where you're looking to go. So I would definitely recommend doing a level of research on different career outcomes that the school has had. We publish an employment report on our website annually where you can go and get some really good insights into the career transitions that students are making. I guess the one thing that I would flag in relation to career transitions is that the MBA isn't a magic wand by any stretch of the imagination. We obviously have lots of candidates who use the MBA as a way to transition their career into a different sector, but there is a huge amount of effort and work that goes into that from the candidate side as well. They will obviously leverage the support that they get on the MBA of the Career Development Centre and of our wonderful alumni network, and obviously the course content that they can cover in the curriculum. But career transitions are essentially down to the individual student as well, how much they're willing to put in order to make what they want to happen after the programme. So definitely a good level of reflection required as well on what you would need to do on your end to make the transition work as well. If you do want some additional information, I think you could send across your CV, as I mentioned, to our general inbox, and one of my colleagues will be able to send you back a little bit more information. Thank you for joining. Another good question here from Amanda. So Amanda has already started the application for the Oxford MBA, but plans to submit it for the next admission cycle. So I'm guessing for entry in 2027 rather than entry in 2026. Amanda's asking me to confirm whether any materials that she completes now, such as recommendation letters, personal information, essays, or other uploaded documents can be carried over and used in future application. That's an excellent question, Amanda, and I hope you have asked it before you have started to do any of these things. The answer is no. So if you are somebody on the call who is applying or plans to apply for entry for the MBA in September 2027, you will not be able to begin your application for that cycle until the new cycle opens, which will happen at the beginning of August in 2026. If you have started an application on the portal this year, it won't be possible for any of the materials that you have already uploaded or provided to be carried over. So unfortunately, that means if you have already included references or you've put in your referee's contact information and they have already uploaded letters of recommendation or anything like that, unfortunately, you will have to ask them to do that process again next year. And similarly for yourself, if you have already uploaded degree transcripts or test scores or completed any of the written components of the application, you will need to redo all of that in the new application portal once it reopens again in August of next year. So really great question for anybody who is on the call who's thinking of applying in the next cycle rather than for entry in September 2026. A question here from somebody who again is asking about English language requirements. So somebody who is a UK graduate, so graduated from a UK university and worked in London for 16 years, who's asking if they still need to take a language proficiency test. That's very dependent on where you are based currently, how long you have been living and working there, and how long you have been living and working without using English, if that is the case. You won't be eligible for an academic waiver. I know you mentioned there that your undergraduate degree, you completed it in the UK. Unfortunately, to be eligible for an academic waiver, you have to have completed the degree within 2 years of the date that you would be starting the MBA. So in your case, I don't think that you'll be eligible for the academic waiver. If you have been living and working in the UK for 16 years and you still do so, then you will certainly be eligible for the professional language waiver that was referenced on the video, and will just need to upload a statement outlining how you use English in your role day to day, and touching on the 4 skills that you would be tested on in the IELTS or TOEFL, so reading, writing, listening and speaking. If you are no longer based in the UK and you've been living and working in another country and haven't been using English across that time, I would take a look and you may still be eligible for the professional language waiver, or depending on how long you have been out of the UK workforce, you may need to submit some language test scores. But based on the information that you've provided there, I think you would be eligible for the professional waiver, but not the academic waiver, unfortunately. Great questions, thank you. A good question here from Shuhai. Shuhai is asking about cases where candidates, yes, okay, so Shuhai is asking about kind of financial support, outlining that different candidates have different financial situations, and asking, are there cases where candidates have unfortunately declined their offer because they were unable to secure a scholarship? A really great question. The answer, Shuhai, is yes. So we will have some candidates every year who apply for the MBA and who are hopeful that they will receive a scholarship as part of that process, and that will be able to support them in terms of funding their place on the MBA. And sometimes when that doesn't happen for candidates, they are unable to then take up their place on the programme, and so they do have to withdraw and essentially decline their place offer. There's a few things that I would say in relation to that I think will be helpful for everybody on the call. The first is that there are a broad range of scholarships available. It's definitely worth doing early research and making sure you have a very clear idea of which scholarships you are eligible to be automatically considered for, and which scholarships you may also be able to submit an application for. If you are applying for a specific scholarship, there will be deadlines attached to those. For the majority of them, the stage 4 deadline in January will be the latest point that you should apply to the programme, and you do need to make sure that your scholarship application is included with your MBA application So they won't allow retrospective applications for scholarships. So you do need to have any scholarship applications that you will be submitting ready for the point that you submit your MBA application. One of the things that you will notice when you are researching scholarships is that the majority of scholarships are partial. There are a small number of full scholarships available, but the majority of the merit-based scholarships that Said can offer to candidates are partial. So for the majority of candidates, that means that they are still looking to source funding for the remainder of the cost of the MBA. So it's definitely good to factor that in. I would say if you're thinking of applying and your only plan to fund the MBA is that you'll get a full scholarship, it's a great dream to have, but it will be a very, very small percentage of candidates who will find themselves in that fortunate position. And in general, I would say that even with the partial scholarships, I think the statistic that we have at Said is that about 1/3 of our students coming in will have some level of scholarship support when they join the MBA cohort, which is obviously a very large number and something that we're very proud of. But that does mean that 2/3 of our students do come in without a scholarship or any sort of funding or support from the school. So it is really important to bear that in mind. And I would strongly encourage everybody on the call to make sure that they have a plan for how they would fund the MBA if they weren't successful in the scholarship process. Oxford is quite strict in terms of we don't consider kind of individual requests for funding. We don't consider kind of competing scholarship offers that candidates have from other schools either. And so, as I said, I would strongly recommend that while you are planning for MBAs, obviously do your research on scholarships, make sure that you have your applications for any that you're eligible for ready, but do have an alternative plan in place for how you will fund the MBA if you're not successful in that scholarship process. Because oftentimes, as I said, when that does happen for candidates, the only option that they have is to then withdraw from the process and decline the offer that they have been given. Great question, thank you. Great question here from Snehal. Snehal again is asking about English language proficiency. So asking if they need to provide a TOEFL or IELTS score if their undergraduate degree was conducted in English. So the issue with that, Snehal, as mentioned in the video, is you're only eligible for an academic waiver if your undergraduate degree was completed within 2 years of the date that you will start the MBA. So if that is the case, based on the information that you provided in the question, I think you would be eligible for the academic waiver. But if your undergraduate degree was taught in anything over 2 years from the point that you would start the Oxford MBA programme, you won't be eligible for the academic waiver. And that is, in my experience, that's the case that a lot of MBA candidates find themselves in, because there is a minimum professional experience requirement of 2 years full time at the point that candidates will start the MBA. Most candidates find that their undergraduate degree, even if it was taught fully in English, has been completed too long ago for them to be eligible for the academic waiver. And so in that case, you have two options. You can look at the professional language waiver and see if you would be eligible for that, or you will then need to look at the IELTS or TOEFL and submit test scores as part of the application if you don't think that you would meet the professional language waiver requirements. Great question here from Akash. This is a good question. So Akash is asking about kind of the personal profile component of the application, and in particular asking about contributing to the Oxford community. What kinds of contributions does Oxford value most? And could you share some examples of how students have meaningfully contributed in the past? It's a really good question. It's obviously something that's difficult for candidates to demonstrate through the application process, because the contributions that you can make can really happen once you are admitted to the programme. But I would say there are a number of things that we do look out for in relation to that. Very broadly, I would say that one of the things we look out for is just ensuring that candidates who we admit to the programme are looking for a very collaborative learning experience. One of the wonderful things about the Oxford MBA is that it's an incredibly diverse student body, both from a nationality perspective, but from a diversity of thought perspective as well. And we really feel that our students benefit as much from their peers within the cohort as they do from the curriculum, the research and the faculty that they can access at the business school. So it is very important for us when we're putting the cohort together to make sure that we find 340 to 350 people that are looking to have a very collaborative learning experience, who are interested in their peers who will be part of the MBA cohort with them, who are open to sharing their personal experiences with their colleagues within the class, but also who are open to the experiences of others as well. And in particular, knowing coming onto the MBA that oftentimes you will be meeting people who will have very, very different experiences and perspectives and beliefs to your own. And so really looking for people who feel that they could learn and grow in that kind of environment. So one of the ways that students really contribute is just by actually showing up and really practically and enthusiastically engaging with the programme once they are on the MBA. There are tons of other ways that students contribute and get involved in different things. And that's very down to kind of the individual motivations of students when they come onto the programme as well. We will have lots of candidates who are very drawn to Said because of the fact that it is a business school embedded within a wider university. And so through the application process and at interview, they really want to highlight, how excited they are to be part of that wider university ecosystem. They have a good understanding of what that means, of what they will be able to access, of how they think that will add to their MBA experience. And so one of the ways that they plan to really contribute while they're there is really leveraging that wider university ecosystem while they're on programme. Some students who really want to contribute in terms of kind of careers focus. So lots of candidates who will be indicating through the application process that they would like to pursue a leadership role at the school, maybe in one of the Oxford business networks. So the sector-focused student-led groups that run every year. Also candidates who maybe indicate that they would be interested in leading a trek to their home country while they're on the MBA. Candidates who indicate that they'd like to give back or get involved in the school community through being part of the student council, so wanting to take a leadership role or position within that. Loads of candidates who are keen, if they have a particular kind of passion or area of interest, to see if they can launch a new student club or a new activity for the year that they're on the MBA, and really hoping that they can take the lead on that. There's honestly so many different ways. Over the past few years, we've had students introduce kind of new forums, whether they be kind of regional focused. So for example, we have a LATAM forum that's taken place for the past couple of years, and that's been really popular, and a new initiative that's been led by our students from LATAM. So a ton of different ways. I would say honestly, we don't particularly value one over the other, and people will have very different motivations in coming to the programme. So key thing I would just say is have some thoughts around how you would like to contribute when you're on the programme in whatever way feels most authentic to you, and to your areas of interest and your passions as well. Okay, I'm just going to scan through because I'm mindful of time. And great question here about GMAT scores and in relation to undergraduate degree scores, which I've touched on briefly, but it's a very popular question. So this question asking if you have a very competitive GMAT score, so one that is well above the median for the cohort, does that help to compensate for having a lower undergraduate degree score? The answer to that is yes. As I was saying earlier, the best thing that you can do if you do have a lower undergraduate degree score and you're concerned about it is to have as competitive a GMAT or GRE score as you possibly can. That demonstrates to the committee that your academic abilities are where they need to be in terms of being able to cope with the academic content of the programme. If you have very strong concerns around having a lower undergraduate degree score, you can use the supporting statement as a space to provide provide context for that. I would really only recommend doing that if you feel kind of very strongly concerned about it, or if you have, you know, kind of a story to tell in relation to it that you feel tells the committee a little bit more about you as an individual, and maybe your ability to overcome challenges or your resilience. So it's not necessary, you don't have to reference it in the supporting statement, but in addition to having a very competitive or GMAT GRE score, that is sometimes something that candidates will choose to do, just to kind of help them bridge the gap, or kind of help them feel a little bit less concerned about having an undergraduate degree score that is a little bit lower. Great question here as well about open days. So we did have an open day in 2025 for the business school. I think we probably had 3. I think we usually have 3. My colleague Hazel, who's on the call, will have more of an instant answer to this than I will. We will certainly have more open days in 2026. There we go. So Hazel's popped the date of the next one into the chat for you guys there. So we'll have an open morning on April 17th, and then we will usually have another one at some point through the summer months as well. So before our application cycle starts again, we'll usually have an open day to give candidates plenty of opportunity to come to the campus, have a look around, and also meet some of the key stakeholders at the school and learn a little bit more about the programme itself. Great question here from Julia. Thank you, Julia, for your question. So Julia is asking, in the application itself, in the professional experience section, we are meant to add just our current company and role, and then the description of the role. Yes, that is correct, Julia. So that kind of free text section of the application, where you can write about your professional experience, is focused on your current job. So obviously you will also upload a CV as part of the professional profile section, and you will outline in your CV experience that you have had prior to the job that you have currently, if that is the case in terms of your professional profile. But in that section you will largely write about your current role, describing to the committee what your role looks like day to day, what your key responsibilities are, what are your kind of main achievements that you've had since you've been in that role, what are some challenges that you've maybe faced since you have been in that role as well, but all focused on the position that you have currently in the organisation that you currently work for. Great question here about references. So somebody who is asking that they have one referee that they would like to use from a previous job that they had, but that they are now self-employed. And so who could they ask to be their second referee? There's a broad range of people that you can ask, and it's difficult to say without knowing kind of the area that you are self-employed within. But a lot of time for candidates who are self-employed or who have startups and things like that, they will potentially ask maybe a client who they have done some work for. If there are any kind of external organizations that they have partnered with or that they have worked with in the role that they have currently, they will ask somebody from one of those organizations. You can also use academic referees. They don't have to be professional. So if you want to use one professional referee and one academic referee, you can go back to somebody who taught you when you were at university and ask for them to provide a reference for you. So it can be a broad range of people, and I know that is something that people who are self-employed or have their own businesses do struggle with sometimes, is wondering who they can ask. I would say in general terms with referees, we are less concerned about who the individual actually is in terms of kind of their seniority or what specific organisation that they work for, and we are more interested in kind of their experience of working with you. So best advice advice is honestly to choose 2 people that know you really well, can write about you with a good level of detail, who are able to tell the committee your strengths, your areas for development, what it's like to work with you in kind of a professional or team setting, and then also 2 people who are really going to kind of advocate for you. So, you know, people who are going to really outline to the committee why they think that you would be a good fit for the Oxford MBA programme, and how you'll add value to the cohort if you were to join. So hopefully that is helpful. We are almost at time. I'm just going to take a look at great, thank you. Okay, so we have a question here, well, 2 questions from G, that I will try to get through both of in the next couple of minutes. So the first part of G's question is around the collaborative and purpose-driven culture that we have at Oxford, and asks what personal qualities or mindsets do we think help students thrive in this community. So some of these things I've referenced already. So as I mentioned, there's kind of 5 key characteristics or behaviours that we think strong MBA candidates or candidates who navigate the programme at Said successfully demonstrate. And we will look to check for these things through the application process, and through the interview as well. And those are things like decisiveness, vision, collaboration, integrity, and leadership. More broadly, I would say there are definitely some traits or interests that our students tend to share that I think really allow us to create a really nice kind of community atmosphere on the MBA at Oxford. One of those is curiosity. I think one of the big advantages of coming to Said is that you're not just having the opportunity to be part of a business school and a business school environment, but you obviously also have the opportunity to be part of a wider university ecosystem, which honestly just makes Oxford such an intellectual playground for people. And so students who really have kind of an innate curiosity, who have a love of learning, who are very excited at the prospect of not only meeting students who are studying on the MBA, but students who are studying all different disciplines across the university, about the opportunities to work collaboratively with other departments across the university, having that kind of innate curiosity or excitement about kind of lifelong learning and growth in that area, is something that kind of is a good indication for us that Oxford is the right place for somebody. I mentioned as well in an answer earlier, I think collaboration is one of the key things that we really look for. The MBA at Oxford really only works if we have 350 students that are looking to have that kind of very collaborative learning experience. So we do look to make sure that candidates are I suppose excited by the diversity that they will be part of within the MBA cohort, both from a nationality perspective, but from a diversity of thought perspective as well, and that they are, as I mentioned, open to sharing their personal experiences, but equally are open to hearing and learning from the experiences of their peers within the cohort as well. So definitely kind of a love of collaboration or an interest in working collaboratively is really key as well. Second part of the question, because I'm mindful on time, so this is more focused on careers. So asking Oxford MBA graduates transitioning into consulting and sustainability related roles, could you please share how the Career Development Centre supports candidates from non-traditional backgrounds such as manufacturing or energy? I probably can't say specifically about those non-traditional backgrounds. I can very broadly talk about how the Career Development Centre support and work with our students. So one of the best things I think about the career support on the Oxford MBA is that it begins for our students 3 months before the MBA itself actually begins. So you'll start to have your onboarding with the Career Development Centre 3 months before the MBA actually starts. Our careers team work in specific sector focused groups. So depending on the sector that you're interested in pivoting into after the MBA, you'll probably find that you'll work more closely with certain teams within the Career Development Centre. So in this case, you'd work with the consulting careers team. And there are individuals then within the career team that focus specifically on impact focused careers. There's also a finance careers team, tech careers team, and a global industries careers team, as well as obviously then the entrepreneurship centre, which can support students who are looking to go into the startup space. So lots of opportunity if you're considering kind of multiple career outcomes to engage with the teams that are most relevant to you. Once you are on the MBA, then the careers team will work with students in a host of different ways. They do a lot of individual career coaching, so working one-on-one with students to help them to identify what jobs they are specifically looking for, they may be looking for, what they're looking to gain from their career moving forward, and which sectors, which roles might make most sense with that in mind. Once students have worked that out, they do a lot of supporting with helping with applications, with improving CVs, with doing mock interviews for students, helping students if they're applying for internships within different organisations as well. A big part of what they do is employer engagement. So there will regularly be events and activities both on campus at Said, but also in London, and that will be organised by the careers team, and that MBA students will be encouraged to attend, which will help them with networking, getting themselves in front of prospective employers. The careers team are also very heavily involved in a lot of the co-curricular activities that run at Said. So for example, if you are a student who's from a non-traditional background and you're thinking of transitioning into consulting, there's a consulting development programme that the careers team will run that you'll be able to access, and that will really help to prepare you for the kind of case focus of the interview process for consulting roles. And then out the other side of the MBA, the careers team will continue to work with students for another 6 months after the MBA programme actually finishes up. So even though the MBA itself is 12 months in length, the service from the Career Development Centre is a lot longer than that. It's about 21 months in total. So that does allow them to provide a very strong level of support, in particular to candidates who are maybe looking to make a transition into a sector that's not essentially related to the experience that they've been building in their career up to that point. So I hope that helps, G. There is on our website, as I mentioned, an employment report that you can access. There's a lot of granular detail in there about students who switch from a particular sector into another sector that I'd recommend taking a look at, which will hopefully just give you a sense of students who are maybe from a non-traditional background or a non-consulting background who are then moving into consulting after the programme. So I hope that is helpful for you. And we are just at time. I think I've just about managed to get through all the questions in the Q&A. Thank you all very much for being so engaged, presenting through so many questions. I hope that between myself and Hazel that we've managed to get through as many of them as we possibly can across that time. For those of you who are on the call who are hoping to submit your application in time for our stage 4 deadline in January, very best of luck to all of you. I know that there will be lots of you who are furiously preparing GMAT and GRE tests at the moment, so wishing you all the very best. We look forward to having lots of applications through from people on the call in either stage 4 or stage 5 of this cycle, and then hopefully I know lots of candidates who were asking about open days and engaging with the team who are potentially thinking to apply a little bit further down the line. So we look forward to staying in touch with all of you as well. Do reach out to the team by email if you have any other questions at all in the coming weeks. We look forward to connecting and to supporting in any way that we can. But for now, just to say a huge thank you to my colleague Hazel and to all of you as well, and wishing you a wonderful end to your Monday. Thanks everyone.